Hello and welcome back to the Warwick F1 Show for another week. It's another race weekend. This weekend we're going away from the US and back to Europe for the first European race of the season and a return to Imola, a track we haven't been to for 2 years now, the race last year being cancelled because of the rain. And I mean, we're going to obviously do our predictions for the race in Imola, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. I think there's a few more words to that title these days, but I can't remember what they are. But before, Imola is, such a historic racetrack. Obviously, it's one that came back onto the calendar with the pandemic in 2020, and it's kind of stuck there. And it seems to be one that is staying for a while, and I think with the history that it has, I think a lot of people are kind of happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and certainly a contrast from where we've just been, Miami. I think we were just mentioning before that it's less of a track that's just been set up for the fame and the money that it has there, and it's kind of more of a heritage, a proper kind of racetrack, if you like, rather than one that's just been set up, as I said, like Miami. So with the hope there it should deliver some brilliant racing for this weekend, as we know it has done in the past, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously with the history, every year we come back to the track. Obviously it is around kind of early May, and attention does turn back to obviously the death of Ayrton Senna, this year being the 30th anniversary of it. Really kind of that attention was a bit more heightened. And do you think it is kind of that mythos that makes Imola, perhaps it's not a track that is the best for racing, especially not with the current generation of cars that are obviously quite long and quite wide, but do you think the mythos kind of the track is its allure? It's kind of like a Monaco where you're sacrificing a little bit, but you've got that history.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more historical nostalgia runs of a track, and like I said, you were talking about the likes of Ayrton Senna and Ronald Ratzenberger on that fateful weekend. Obviously it's been 30 years, like I said, 30-year anniversary, and I guess especially the track has thrown. We've had maybe, I think, 2 or 3 races now here.
Yeah, so we had 2020, obviously, kind of pandemic year, two-day weekend. Verstappen spins out into the gravel. 21, kind of that first shot of, I guess, the battle that became
the first chicane collision between the two that basically ruined Hamilton's race.
Yeah, well then obviously Lewis making that mistake, kind of admittedly getting quite lucky, because obviously Bottas and Russell then collide a lap or so later.
And Mercedes is that bulletproof front wing.
And then the last few races, perhaps a bit more kind of routine. There was a bit.
2022 was not a fun race at all. I think we did brand it as the worst race of the season that year.
Yeah, then we saw, I think, in the sprint, the battle between Leclerc and Verstappen. We all had high hopes for what that season was going to turn out to be, and then obviously in 23 we didn't end up going there because of the very heavy floods, and I think everyone agreed.
But then maybe that is because we got the exception to the rule early on when the track first came back, and maybe a little and perhaps a little bit of excitement for it being, for the first few times of it being back on the calendar. But then now that it's become more routine, I guess you could say, of it being kind of a staple to the F1 calendar in modern days, you kind of do remember that actually for, as you mentioned, the current generation of F1 cars, which are so massive, it's rather like Monaco, where it's you're not going to get the most overtaking opportunities as possible, and why perhaps the reason we're still going there is because, as you say, of that mythos. And so
I heard the batch of 2022 was probably a bit more famous for something that Will's not going to like.
Don't remind us getting stuck behind Pierre Gasly for the entirety of that race. And then the graphics team absolutely doing Hamilton dirty with because as Verstappen was coming up to lap Hamilton, it was the gap between Mercedes or Hamilton and Verstappen was like 70 seconds. And
I mean, to be fair, we were literally fresh off that season as well. So
well, it's good because they've really improved. Oh wait, no, they haven't.
No.
Well, I mean, speaking of kind of improvements, a number of the teams are bringing upgrades to the track. So obviously McLaren are now bringing their full package. Norris having that package, but now Piastri's going to get it. Ferrari apparently bringing upgrades that they're very confident about. Upgrades that look like, or are rumoured to kind of be in the realm of 3/10 of improvement, which is quite a margin for upgrades. Red Bull, I think, bringing upgrades that are expected to do a bit less for improvement, but obviously improvement nonetheless. You always kind of see it at the first European race of the season. Like, you see that those teams bringing upgrades. But do you think, especially after Miami and obviously non-Max Verstappen win, do you think there's more of a potential for a closer fight?
Perhaps. I'm still yet to be convinced, and I think a lot of people still are yet to be convinced that anyone can really challenge Verstappen on his day. I mean, in Australia, obviously, he had a problem with the brakes, which caused him to retire early on. And I think for the last race, he did receive some floor damage from obviously, only on his own accord from running over the bollard, but then that's still damage nonetheless that hindered him after the safety car came out. So I think still we're yet to see anyone purely challenge Verstappen when Verstappen is at his best, as we've seen for the past few seasons. So I think it definitely should be a lot of a closer fight in kind of maybe the region behind Verstappen. So maybe with Perez and then McLaren and Ferrari. And McLaren have definitely made some great leaps towards that second place, kind of, not in the constructors, I'd say, but then that kind of area behind Verstappen. And so I think, especially after Miami, with the confidence that they had, they should definitely be able to have the confidence to be able to get there and be able to win against the Ferraris. But I think, yeah, as we'll see in the predictions later on, I think Verstappen is still the favourite, unfortunately. I hope he's not, but yes.
Yeah. He's just inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
Well, apart from when I'm predicting him to win, apparently. I think there may be. I know what you mean by, like, it's a bit early to say. Obviously, Norris wins one race, and you kind of see the media be like, "Oh, is there a title battle coming?" It
happened a couple of seasons ago, where same with Bottas when he won a couple of races at the start of the season against Hamilton. Same when Perez won a couple of races at the start of the season against Verstappen, and the media blows it up saying, "Oh, is there a title fight?" And you just need to wait a bit longer, I think.
But if someone that's not Verstappen does win this race, if it's a Leclerc, if it's a Norris, even if it's a Sainz, or maybe even Piastri, do you think there is, and let's say it is on pure pace, like they've just beaten a Red Bull, they've beaten Verstappen night and day, do you think that there is more of that chance, maybe?
Thing is, I don't want to get my hopes up because I know that they could be destroyed instantly by Verstappen. Obviously, we all want more entertaining races, but I think we've got to see a few races in succession to start actually believing that a team can deliver that pace week in, week out. Because, but then to be fair, what we're really wanting is just Verstappen to not win every race, and we've been very fortunate that it hasn't turned out to be last season where that actually happened. So I think truly challenging Verstappen, it's going to have to be something that's consistent week in, week out, because we've seen that Red Bull have been able to do that with their, absurdly strong form in every single race that they've been to, no matter what the dynamics of the track. If that were to happen this weekend, where Verstappen didn't win on pure pace, I think personally, I would say it's more to do with just the situations that happened in the race, and maybe the dynamic of the track favoured one team over the other. if it happened in a couple of races, then I'd start to be more convinced. But I think, yes, unfortunately, I'm just happy at the moment to not have Verstappen win every race as such.
Well, I mean, you say the dynamics of the track. Obviously, it looks as though there may be a spot of drizzle around on the Sunday, and I mean, it's kind of those weather conditions that look very difficult, but because it kind of looks like it's very like light rain. Like, is it too wet for dries? Is it too dry for wets? I think we're shaping up for a potentially good race. I think the weekend should be a good one, and at the end of the day, I think it's nice to kind of go back to Imola, obviously, because we couldn't go there last year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, the weather will hopefully make things a lot more interesting. But yeah, we'll just have to see when it comes to the weekend itself, when it comes to Sunday, because especially with the F1 curse, where rain likes to come just after the race finishes. But let's see.
That's a late 2010s curse. It was just like every other weekend. It was like, oh, the rain's come. The race has finished an hour ago.
Yeah.
But no, we'll move on now to our predictions for the week. So as ever, we take it in turns to pick a P1. Everyone's got to go for a different P1. And then we all pick P2 to 5 and then make 1, 2 and 3 point predictions, obviously, with the 1s being more likely to happen and the 3s being much less likely. Callum, you're taking the place of Will for the week, and you get first pick this week after so you have both been successful. Chinmay and Will and Callum have all been successful at picking their P1. I have not, because Verstappen insists on not winning the weekend.
Every third race.
Every third race, exactly.
You heard it here first. Verstappen is not going to win in calendar in the next few races when Will is predicting.
If that happens, there might actually be a problem.
That's when we have to actually start questioning things, I think.
But no, you get P1 or you get first place for P1 for the day. So I feel like it's normally obvious that
Verstappen, yes, it's like I said, it's yet to be convinced that it's going to go any other way, and even if we did have a couple of races where some different drivers did win, I think we'd still feel most confident in picking Verstappen as the most likely race winner. It's definitely going to take a lot, and I think quite a long time in F1 for that not to be the case. So yes, Verstappen P1. Should we go around and do the P1s first?
Yep.
And then.
So for me, hang on. So I've gone for a Leclerc first place. This is a bit more tactical in my opinion, but I've gone for the bold choice. I've gone for Norris second, Sainz third, Piastri fourth, and the tactical Verstappen fifth.
Verstappen fifth.
Okay, so I can't pick Verstappen or Leclerc. So I've said it's going to be like the old London buses. When one comes, another one comes straight after, and I've said Norris P1. I think there's potential there. I think that if McLaren continue with their kind of like track record of like improvements. I mean, we saw it last week. Like obviously Verstappen did have the damage, but Piastri was keeping him honest for the first half of the race. I mean, Norris was, I think, not insignificantly gapping Verstappen at the end of it. No. There is potential here for Norris, and if the weather's rainy. Oh no, Norris isn't winning.
No, but you're right. In terms of form, he's probably the second best on the grid at the moment. I'd say in terms of just pure driver ability, he's been outstanding for this season. So it's more of a case of just his car just needs to be there, and maybe Verstappen's doesn't in order for him to win.
I mean, to be fair, Norris does like Imola. He has a good. He got 3 podiums in a row, especially with that 2022 spec car. I think it was 2022 you got a podium as well?
He got a podium in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, because 2022 that McLaren was awful that period of the year. And someone got a podium. I think that was McLaren's only podium that year.
So with the equipment that he has now, hopefully,
he might be
should deliver.
Night and day quicker. I'll do my 2 to 5, and then Callum will do his. I've said, well, if Norris is winning, then at the moment it looks like Verstappen is either DNFing or coming P2. So may as well put in P2, which is what I've gone for. I've gone Sainz P3. I think there's potential there. He's looking for some redemption from a few years ago when he then I think he knocked Ricciardo out the race and or knocked himself and Ricciardo out the race. I've gone Leclerc P4 and then Perez to round out the top 5.
Okay, so so once again, I've gone Norris P2. I think, as I mentioned, he's definitely, I'd say personally, the second strongest driver on the grid currently in terms of form. We've all gone, I realise, Sainz P3. We all realise that he's been very consistent and he's probably going to be up there and possibly round out the last place on the podium. Now, I didn't want to go for just the typical both Red Bulls, both Ferraris and Norris, as seems to be the most strongest lineup so far this season. So I thought I'd go a bit different with my P4, and hoping for some rain, I've gone with Alonso P4.
Oh, okay.
Hoping that his experience will mean that he can make up a few places in the event of some rain. We'll see how that works out. If he DNFs or finishes outside the top 10, I'm going to look like a massive idiot. And then Perez P5, yes, in the sister Red Bull.
Okay, and do you want to do your 1, 2, and 3
Yes,
points?
So for my 1 pointer, I'll say that both Alpines finished outside the points. I don't think their points finish last season, even if it breaks my season-long prediction that they won't finish with a single point. I still don't think it's going to mean that they're going to get anywhere anytime soon. 2 pointer is, I'm going to say, a double Haas points finish in the race. I think they're definitely capable of that, especially if there's some rain that comes out and possibly mix up the grid a little bit. And then my 3 pointer is based on, I think, I'm pretty sure something that happened either in Miami or the race before, and I'm hoping that it happens again. And I'm going to say that a Red Bull double stack will be faster collectively than a Sauber single pit stop in the race.
So are we saying not the whole double stack, but the cumulative time of the 2 pit stops?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do. Yes. So
that sounds
yeah,
alright.
I'm happy with that. So now moving on to my 1, 2, and 3. So my 1 pointer is there will be a red flag in the weekend, but just to make it slightly harder, because a red flag is always guaranteed in the weekend, is that it can't be on the Friday.
very likely in the practice sessions. Yeah.
Yeah. So FP3, the qualifying or the race.
Yeah,
That's fair enough.
Especially if there's a forecast for rain on Sunday. And then my 2 point is that there's going to be Mercedes knocked out in Q1 with the added bonus that we have a depressed Toto.
Plus depressed Toto this weekend. That's in the news. It's
Yeah. So that's just a side caveat. And then the third one is going to be all Ferrari engine teams will score points this weekend. So that's redundant. That means Ferrari, Sauber, and Haas all have to score points. Which is quite...
The Sauber
part
one is quite audacious.
Well, I thought, you know what... It's
definitely a 3 point prediction, absolutely.
You've got to make it a bit outrageous.
Okay. And I've gone for my 1 point, I've gone for a Mercedes finishes in P6, P7 or P8. For my 2 pointer, 3 or more drivers outside of the top 5 teams finish in the points. You're looking at your Haas's, your Williams, your Saubers, your
Visa Cash
Apps, and then your Alpines. So 3 of those drivers to finish in the top 10. And then my 3 pointer, a bit different. I've gone for the leader, so the driver in P1 at the time, regardless of who it is, spins out of the race and DNFs. So
and DNFs. Okay.
They spin into the gravel. It might be through driver error, it might be through like a tyre failure, as we think back to Verstappen.
Yeah.
But they are in the lead. They're potentially looking on for a win, and then they spin out and can't get it started and DNF from the race.
Should hopefully I hope that happens. It should hopefully make for a very interesting race if it does. But yes.
Yeah.
So
those are our predictions for Imola. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be shaping up to be a good weekend, and as ever, it will be good to be back there. Where can they watch it, Chinmay?
in the Clarendon. Yeah, F1 Society as usual hosting their race viewings in the Clarendon. Do join us if you want to. Obviously, the discounted food and drinks as well. But yeah, otherwise.
Yeah, and we're back to Sunday afternoon, early afternoon races. You'll be competing with the football actually this weekend.
Oh no, football's all at 4:00.
Oh great! So watch the race.
Watch the
then
race.
watch the
Stay
football.
for the football. Absolutely.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, to be fair, they're not showing Jurgen Klopp's last match, so I will be at home watching it on
That's fair enough.
Other means.
I'm just waiting for the season to end. Not gonna lie, but that's football. This is F1. Yeah, and I think that's brought us to the end of the predictions. Anyone got any final words?
No. Hopefully
Okay.
it's a good weekend.
Yeah, hopefully, and I think we're all looking forward to it. But as ever, thank you for listening.